Hey everyone, Jacob here from Wetsuit Warehouse. Today we're going to go over thicknesses, split knit thicknesses, and what kind of thickness you should be looking for depending on where you're at, what season, that kind of thing. With wetsuits, it's common to find something like a 3-2 or 4-3 or 9-7. The idea with that is it's optimizing warmth and stretch depending on the position of the body. Being that you need a lot of stretch for your paddling and maybe getting up and back stretch, you're better off running a thinner neoprene through those panels because it's going to free up that motion. For the parts that don't stretch, you may as well go as thick as you can. That's going to mean you're warmer in those parts, especially in your chest and in your back. As we talked about in the seams video, the thicker the wetsuit isn't necessarily going to be warmer. If your suit's good fitting, and I guess for the sake of this discussion, we'll talk about a well-fitting suit with sealed seam, having a 3-2 means you're going to have a 3 mil around here, and then 2 mil in shoulders, underarm gusset. That's going to give you the most amount of stretch where you need it and the most amount of warmth where you need it. Pretty much all suits are going to come in that split size. We do see a lot of 2 mil, straight 2 mils, just because up in Queensland, when our water temperatures at most, well at least, get to about 19 degrees, a sealed 2 mil will cut it easy. Depending on where you're from, that's pretty much the main defining factor of how thick a suit you're going to need. Up in Queensland, usually ranges from about 23 in the summer, 24 in the summer, to maybe 19 in the winter. Typically in a suit like this, 19 degrees, 2 mil would be good. In the surfing application, you're moving a lot, so you're generating a lot of heat. So you're better off having something thin, something sealed. 2 mils, typically the go-to. If you're stepping away from the good seam, most people will run a 3-2 or maybe a 3-3, but generally a 3-2. It's also important to bear in mind that the coldest water temperatures don't align with the coldest atmospheric temperatures. On the east coast of Australia, the coldest water comes through in August, but typically we'd expect the coldest weather to be in sort of June, July. That does have a bit of an effect on your suit. Although there's a difference in water temperature and surface temperature, you can always cool down your suit by flushing water. So in that sense, you're better off going warmer because you can't really generate heat, but you can cool down the suit. For the crew around Sydney, it's a bit colder, definitely. Not only in the air, but in the water. As opposed to Queensland 19 degree minimum, the Sydney average minimum is around 16 degrees. 3 degrees doesn't seem like that much, but in the water it makes a huge difference. My friend was surfing up in Norway and it's snowing and the water temperatures are 9 degrees. 9 degrees doesn't seem that cold, but he was in an 8 mil with a hood, gloves and everything else to go with it. So there's no real association between land temperature and water temperature. For the crew in Sydney, at that 16 degree mark, most of them will run a 4-3. Typically in the surf world, you're kind of going to struggle to get something much thicker than that until you move into your hooded sort of 5 mils and 6 mils. Hoods exceptionally increase warmth. Like, that's where most of your heat's getting lost. So to seal that in, it's going to make the whole suit feel a lot thicker, but it's not going to have to be thicker. So you're going to get that nice pedaling power, but retaining a lot of warmth through the goodness of the hood. For the crew down in Victoria, it's coldest August 15th apparently. Gets down to about 12 degrees, 14 degrees. It's pretty cold. You'd definitely be wanting to rock a hood, gloves, boots, and depending how much you feel it, at least a 4-3. Like a 4-3 with a hood like this one, full thermo lining and some sealed seams, you'd probably be okay. But I mean, a lot of the crew I speak to are running a 6.54 or a 5 mil, usually with a hood. It's important to bear in mind there's a lot of other factors involved in water temperatures other than the temperature of the water. If it's blowing offshore and that wind's coming overland, it's going to be much colder. If you think about driving down the coast in the morning, you're driving down, it's 5 degrees on your car, get in the water, it's 15 degrees. So if that wind's moving offshore, that's going to be the coldest factor. You'll typically find crew up in Queensland will just run a long sleeve top because the water temperature is so good, but we can still get 5 degree mornings. So if your upper body's shielded from that wind, you're going to be all good. There's also another phenomenon called cold water upwelling, and it happens along the east coast of Australia. And if the wind blows northerly for, around a week, what that does is it pushes the hot water off the coast and brings up cold, deeper water. That can drop the temperature 3 to 4 degrees. So if you're in the middle of winter and you've got this cold water upwelling, you can have to deal with some really cold weather. The only real indicator of it, other than checking the charts every day, is that northerlies bring in the blue bottles. So if there's blue bottles, it's going to be cold, it's going to be blue bottles. Probably don't want to be there. Obviously in summer it's a bit warmer. Up in Queensland people won't wear anything, maybe a top, depending on the wind. Sydney crew will tend to be in a springy all year round, or on warm summer days you definitely don't need anything, whereas down in Vico you're probably going to run a spring suit all year round, but it depends how you'll acclimatise. If you've got a really good suit in the winter, you're probably going to have to wear a suit in the summer. We've covered the east coast of Australia and I guess the south. If you're going down to Tassie, it does get a bit colder. You're looking at sub-10s in the middle of the winter. And people going up and surfing under the northern lights and that kind of thing, they're going to be running probably at least a 6 mil, 7 mil. There are a few brands that go up into like 6 mil in the surf suits, but if you're still feeling the cold at 6 mil, you're probably better off getting some sort of scuba suit or a dry suit. Not that they're any good for surfing, but better being out there without any movement than being stuck on the beach. Another factor for the warmth, separate to the thickness, are the smoothie skins. Again, different names from different companies, but essentially this material can't hold water. Therefore it's always going to be dry. That means when you're sitting up on your board, maybe that offshore's ploughing through 20 knots and 5 degrees, it's not going to be pulling heat away from your back or from your chest. If you've got something, if this jersey is wet, it's going to cool down 25 times quicker than this material here. So if you think about the ability for the wind to wick heat away from the body, doing it around your peripheries ain't that bad, as long as your chest and your kidneys are warm. If you've got any questions about thickness, we've got a few charts on our website just to sort of define what thicknesses are going to be good for wear. The site's www.wetsuitwarehouse.com.au. We've got live feed on there, so if you're not where we've mentioned, just give us a holler and we can run you through the thicknesses.